Ladies and gentlemen, let's find out which shell will penetrate the deepest. GMODISM. You are most welcome back to GMODISM. This is your host Eric, and we are back with empirical testing. Oh yeah, we're back on the platform Mark II. You've probably seen some updates on the community page here on YouTube, where you see some updates of what's going on. Yeah, and it feels a little bit sad to be, back at platform Mark II, because I know that platform Mark III looks so much better. But here we are, and we are going to do a little bit of more penetrator testing, because we'll need to see what type of 8-meter shell can be the best penetrator possible. Yeah, because that's what we want to take up here. We have gotten a shell submitted, which we will take a look at. We also have a little upgrade of a turret, which we'll need to look at. So the Arquebalista has been upgraded, and not by me. Our longtime Army of GMODISM member Netramiera has submitted an upgrade to the Army of GMODISM Arquebalista Invictus. And that is the Army of GMODISM Arquebalista Indomitus. And it is a 494mm shell instead of the original 480. This is the original Arquebalista Invictus seen on the Gimli class, for example. And here we have the upgraded version. So we will compare and see if it is any better. It has one of our new self-hosted logos, which is absolutely fantastic, via gmodism.com. If you haven't visited the site, you should do that now. Anyways, I think we should look through the interiors just a little bit to see what's inside. The internals of it look extremely similar. The millimeter amount has changed. Oh, we have some more rail absorption here. That we can see is different. If we look at the systems themselves, yeah, Netramiera's version has a little bit more of rail charge too. You can see we got more rail chargers, so it does probably have a higher rail raw then. And we have 2 more autoloaders inside of here too. Wow, neat fit. Oh, do we got more autoloaders in general? No? Anyways, if we look at the shell design, let's see here. So we have a sabot solid and a super cab, 6 gunpowder. And if we'll look here, thank you. This is a little bit more, isn't it? So yeah, the original Arquebalista does have more gunpowder than it would seem. But look at that. Well, very interesting. 18 modules, this is 17 modules. Okay, that is a bit different too. That's very interesting. Still EMP insulated, that is very nice. Yeah, I think we should check the stats here a little bit. So if we look here at the original Arquebalista, you can see it has a shell speed of 1951 meters per second. And if we look at the upgraded version, it has a slower shell speed by just a few meters per second, but 1914 meters per second, and a similar boost from the rail, just a little bit more. It has a higher millimeter, so it's a larger shell, but it is, I guess, a bit of a shorter shell with a little less gunpowder. Anyways, shell power is rated as 780, and the original one is 700. The rate of fire of the new version is slightly higher from 5.5 RPM to 5.6 RPM. So that's pretty cool since we have a bigger shell then. Interesting upgrades. We definitely have to see here. It has a little bit of more inaccuracy. Don't know why, but like it's the same type of shell buildup, sabot head with solid warhead bodies with super cavs. And it of course has super cavs because the Arqueballista Invictus does shoot at stuff underwater. Armor piercer of the original is 85 with a kinetic damage of 52 then, I suppose. That's 52,000. And if we look at this here, providing the rail draw is correct, it has higher, almost 60k kinetic damage, little less AP, but it's still much overstacked heavy armor, so that's very fine. Well, you know what? The only thing we can do is test the original versus Netramiera's upgraded version for Sunimit Bone Independent on platform. Anyways, bam! Look at that. And we can see that the upgraded one does have much higher penetration. It does penetrate, that is like, this is the last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 blocks more, because you can see this is damaged and this is very little damaged. And as some of you said before, it would be interesting to have several like data points to test. Absolutely. I do that, but I don't sometimes record all of them. Look at that, and here the shell got a bit of a deviation. So we'll have to calculate those kill blocks too. Now, we're shooting faster than we should, so of course we're amounting up to a little bit more recoil than we would have. Yeah, it's like solid 5 blocks more, and each of these blocks has a health of 1.6, almost 1.7 thousand. So that is significantly more damage, where the Arqueballista Invictus does have trouble penetrating. The how to say now, Indomitus will be able to do it. Now, I guess it means something with domination, but I haven't looked up the Latin translation. Oh, we do have some nice little, is this like plasma parts to decorate a barrel here too, so that's neat. That actually looked really cool in gold. That was a really nice little addition. Very nice little upgrade, and it still like upholds the previous form. Very much so. Well, the thing is, however, what's the material cost difference? So the Indomitus Arqueballista is clocks in at 73,000 materials, and the original Arqueballista Invictus clocks in at 67,000 materials. So that is that 6,000 materials more? Ish, give or take. Quick calc. Does use a little bit more rail, but it does penetrate deeper, and where the Arqueballista Invictus had trouble hitting, I'm thinking this is just a solid upgrade to the Arqueballista. So very cool upgrade, Netramiera. And you know what battleship will be upgraded with the Indomitus? Well, obviously, when we do the Gimli class upgrades, we'll definitely add that, because as everyone participating in the Gimli tourney got their fair chance to upgrade their design before the tournament began, both if they were in the losers bracket or the winners bracket, I feel that I get to upgrade the Gimli to Mark III because somebody already built the Gimli Mark II. Kevin tried to be specific for the Gimli battles. It did not get through the losers bracket, however, so we won't be seeing it in the tournament we're having now. But that means I'll be building Mark III. or possibly even Mark IV if we would count the Gimli class Afterparty as a Mark III. But I think I'll build Mark III, that makes sense more. Let's just shoot one more time here. Oh god, something happened. What? This is really weird. Now I got this block not even being shot off when I did the next round. And this is something Netramiera said in his test, that stuff like didn't get through. That's really weird. We've got the similar pattern there. I do suspect it has to do with lag a little bit, but I'm not sure. Anyways, very nice little addition. And you know who's also submitted an 8-meter shell that would then be able to penetrate the best, or has the best stats? Well, Netramiera did that too. So we're gonna build that shell and check it out. This is the max penetration shell. But here I also have the max penetration shell, you know, the one we found for diff guns. And I basically try to scale it down, just lowering the gauge so that it fits into an 8-meter autoloader. That gives us a 415mm shell, just like the outer one. Heavy head, sabot warhead bodies all the way, base bleeder, 3 gunpowder. Yeah, that's basically what we do. Now I have a little idea here. What if we drag up the gauge? Okay, so let's check the values here first. What if we look at the damage here? We have 112,000. What if we drag up the gauge so we don't really fit, and then actually decrease the gunpowder so that we do fit? Huh. That's more damage, isn't it? I may have a goldfish memory right now, but isn't it 12? Yeah, we got it up a bit there. So what if we drag down one of the propellants here to a little bit less, so that we can increase the gauge to exactly like that, and we can also increase the rail draw. Yeah, 19th, that is more damage. Okay. So we may need to tweak this a little bit later, but now it's a 431mm. That was my idea anyways. And this, however, I did another thing, that instead of using 20 modules, what if we just decrease the amount of modules and have 500mm shell? Then we can have a damage of 125,000. Yeah, so that's actually a lot more than we could approach kind of 120,000. So that's a far cry from that. Yeah, okay. We don't need to do that. It's better to decrease the modules in that case, it seems like. Very interesting nonetheless. We may need to look at removing or adding gunpowder casings. You can see we have drawn down the propellant here a little bit for it to work. So that's something we should tweak a bit. I think I want to check this first actually. What if we have this shell with 125,000 damage, okay? Let's try to remember this together, this number. And adding another gunpowder casing and a base bleeder. That's lower damage, okay. So if we add sabot warheads there and have a base bleed, so we have 2 gunpowder casing, 124. Okay, we have to adjust that thing too, 130,000. Did I forget to do that? I may need to put back some gunpowder in here. Calculate this, that works okay. 16 on, oh damn, okay, definitely not. So sabot having 2 gunpowder casings, trying to draw this up here, 120, replacing this with a base bleeder. Well, obviously now it fits as well, it didn't before I think. And now we have 130, okay. You know what, I think I may need to look at what happens if we have even less gunpowder. Sabot warhead body. That is more damage. And now we can draw up the rail a bit more. 141. Okay. We can't really rely on gunpowder at all. It's just better. So we just have it as filling out the last space, to be honest. Now gunpowder is nice and that it's much cheaper than using rail, but interesting to note in any case. Using the diff gun I set up was a very bit special case because at that point we basically overshot the max possible rail draw a shell can have, and that's the reason why adding gunpowder was beneficial. I just remember that now. And since we don't do this here, it isn't beneficial to add gunpowder since we aren't using all of the 200,000 anyways. Well, let's add some solid warhead bodies and make this have a like armor piercing value of yeah, 40-ish. Perhaps a little bit more than 40. I'm gonna shoot at stacked metal too. So 151,000 I can get this one too, doing 500 millimeters. Yeah, so that's interesting. Our lower gauge one, it's such a far cry behind, so we won't even need to test that. Now we have some other setups too, which is a bit interesting. I think I just realized I designed the shell 2 times now, because I was like freebasing some ideas, so to say. You don't say that, GMODISM, what the hell are you talking about? But anyways, here we have a base bleeder. This is GP assist. We have 1 gunpowder. We can get this to 151. Are these the same? 151. Yeah, they are the exact same shells. Well, good job, GMODISM. I just reordered them. So it's 17 modules, right, in order to fit that. I guess this one makes more sense. It's common sense 500 gunpowder assist. So yeah, this would be max pen. Yeah. What it kind of had was it had Sabot warhead bodies all the way. I guess we can test it like this. No hurt in doing that. It might do more damage against heavy armor, we shall see indeed. What if we just would put this Sabot warhead body here? Okay, 70k damage. We really need the heavy heads. There is no way around it. We absolutely need the heavy heads to deal any type of significant damage. Okay, the next shell I set up, well, that was this is the common sense that we did, and this is basically the same thing but only rail. So we have a base bleeder, Sabot warhead body, some solids, making it undershoot 40 just a little bit. We can actually draw up this rail draw a little bit. What we've done here is that we have used 18 modules, but we have drawn down the gauge a little bit in order to fit. So instead of using gunpowder, we are drawing down the gauge to make it fit here, but just drawing it down a little bit. So as you can see here, we have 152,000 damage. So that is a good bit more here than our gunpowder assist one, isn't it? It's very close, actually. It's very close. But that's the options in any case. We may need to tweak a little bit with this. Like, these are 17 modules, and this is a bit interesting. We do need a gunpowder casing here, but we have 17 modules. Just for test here. I think I'll need to do a little test here. If I would copy this thing and just replace this gunpowder with a railgun casing, And then look at just decreasing the gauge a tiny little bit for it to fit. Can we overshoot the previous value or not? 150,000, but we can add more solid water bodies to make it 154,000, but yeah, need to compare them fairly here. It's so hard to adjust these values while we're scrolling all over the place. 493 millimeters. We have a damage of 152 as compared to this 151. So here we do have a higher gauge. That's very interesting. And here we have an even lower gauge. How do these compare then? That's interesting. This one has no railgun casing. It does do a little less damage. Now I'm a bit curious then. Can we overshoot this value adding more railgun casings? So if we add another one, let's add like 3 of them and have a base bleeder. Now we still fit here and we deal less damage. Okay, that won't work. And here, no. Definitely impossible. Now the base bleeder is mandatory, it looks like. Throwing up the stats here, okay. That's very similar, like, is that the same? It's slightly better, just slightly. So what if we removed the railgun casing then? That is what I wanted to try. What if we removed the railgun casing and adjusted the gauge? So here we have a shell fitting in 8 meter. It is 493. It's 493 here as well. We removed the railgun casing and just added a base bleeder. Yes, so we have like the same amount of modules, right? But 0 casing modules, so it's pure railgun. And now we can get to 156,000 damage. That's very interesting, 152. So we definitely did better damage right there. So I think we optimized this type of common sense shell, but it is, we should fill it in here, 493 millimeters GP assist. With the gunpowder assisted one being not as good, we can remove it. With the railgun casing assisted one not being very good either, we can remove it too. So here we have the common sense one then at 493. This is so nitpicky tweaks, but 156,000 damage, that's very, very neat. What if then? What if then? Last thing we should probably adjust. What if we have less modules? Now we have 17. What if we have 16 modules? Then we can draw up the gauge probably a little bit, and from earlier experience that would then possibly make it better. Right, so now we have a shell that's a little shorter, and oh no, it just doesn't quite deliver, does it? 151, far cry from 156. Yeah, so 16 modules is too short. Well, I think we'll need to revisit that a little bit later. Here we have another variant not using what is it? What is that? Base bleeder. We don't use a base bleeder for this one. It's pure 500 millimeter, full rail raw. It just exactly fits into the ammo, and it does 142,000 damage, and obviously at a little worse AP. So, like this is like good damage, sure, and whatever, but not quite. This is 16 modules as well, so it's an exact fit. Now, we're going to test this as comparison. It's a sabot head, solid warhead bodies all the way, and a base bleeder. Very common penetration shell. What if we switch this to a heavy head? Just to see. 163, but the AP is abysmal. We are going to test it naturally with a sabot head, just to see what damage it deals against heavy armor and the like, just for comparison. This is like a pretty common shell to throw at stuff, so yeah, it's a normal one. The heavy head, its armor piercing value is a bit sad, but 183,000 damage is... it might be a record. This might be the most we have seen, but it is at the lower AP value. So what if we added sabot warhead bodies until we can reach 40 or close to 40? Then we're basically having 156. Have I recreated the shell again? I think I have. I think I have recreated the shell again. And that probably says it's a pretty good shell to make then. 15663. Here we have 15663. Right? Yeah, that's the same. So I suppose we can use this with just solids and a heavy head and the other as a sabot head, and just compare these as well. Can be a good idea. Now we should check what Netramiera sent in. This is thus the optimal shell according to Netramiera or Sannemitbonen, which built this little shell exceeding our previous tests. So let's check it out. We have a heavy head, solid warhead bodies up to, well, dependent on what we're gonna shoot at. We got sabot warhead bodies, then we got penetration depth fuses, and they do have a speed modifier. That's interesting. And a base bleeder, of course. And ooh, look at that. We have 157.9. So almost 158,000 damage at 40 AP. That is very, very impressive. It's really weird. So probably it's having 20 modules. I wonder if it's this that can make it use the full rail draw possibly. This is very, very interesting. I'm gonna quickly fill in the values here so we can see them more easily in thousands. And seeing these values, you can see that, wow, 157, that's awesome. So Netramiera has really surpassed all the configurations so far. That's very interesting. And of course we have this one, we have to put it up to the test, but this is gonna be much more reduced due to the AP, lower AP. Now we got some instructions on how many solid warhead bodies we should add to this while shooting at metal. But anyways, we can definitely see that yeah, we can test the old max pen anyways, but it has higher AP value, that's true. This and this has the same AP value, however, and we can see that the common sense at the higher caliber is better than the common sense at the lower caliber with more modules. So one thing we just need to see here, that is, here we have Netramiera's design, and we're using penetration depth fuses here. So wonder if we can somehow increase this one's damage by, of course, adding them penetration depth fuses here. See what type of damage we could make it doing. 163 already? Well, of course it doesn't quite fit. Whoa. This is like this is a pure hack. So if we put it to there, we got 158 at 39.6. If we add another sabot then, let's see if we have maxed that out. Yeah, 155 Not quite what Netramiera got, is it? I guess we just need to keep adding them. If we had another penetration depth fuse, we can see the... we can then increase the gauge. Oh, and we are too small now, to be honest. That is... wow, that's weird. The shell doesn't fill out properly when we had another penetration depth fuse. That's very interesting. So we simply have too few modules right now. Well, this configuration in particular wasn't too shabby. It's almost 40 and 163,000. I'm wondering if this... oh, and oh man, this doesn't quite fit even. That's a problem. This doesn't quite fit. We'll need to drag it down to, what is it? Like that. 157.3, and here we are. Yeah, it's worse. It's worse because this one has a higher AP value. So that is that's quite interesting. So basically, if we had too few modules, I can speak, let's try to add another module in front of this one then. Like a single module. And put the heavy head here. I'm feeling I'm turning into a shell designing engineer or something. Naturally, we're too large now. So if we add another penetration depth fuse, we need to decrease the gauge a tiny little bit still. Yeah, we can get it up to 181 millimeters gauge, I mean. Okay, and now we can get 157. I think Netramiera really tweaked this. Let's try another penetration depth fuse. Look at that, we can get to 7.9 meters. And then we have a... need to add some sabots more here. Like this. 155. Look at that. Not quite, is it? 1556. This is so small margins. This is insane. Yeah, this is probably the best configuration I could make for this, but I think Netramiera's might yet be better. Of course, I just built on its ideas there, so there is that. But if we were to... we had this little adaptable amount of solid warhead bodies dependent on what we should be shooting at. But say if we undershoot the AP value bit and add more solid warhead bodies, we can see that we do 60k damage. Yeah, definitely. If we're shooting at raw metal, yeah, we can undershoot that. But of course, metal is stacked when it's put together, but if we are gonna compare it to metal ducts, this is what we do. Put it just below 40, or exactly 40. Just for fun, we should of course see if it's possible to improve it. I don't think it is. I think Netramiera really honed it in to be perfect. So now we have a too long shell, obviously. We have 3 penetration depth fuses. This is... oh. Why is that, I wonder? 20 modules, 20 modules. 1, 2, 3, oh, it's 4 penetration depth fuses, isn't it? It is. So if we draw this down in its gauge again here, just to see if we can possibly surpass the damage. I don't think so. It seems that higher gauge always deals better damage. 156.4. Yeah, that is true. So adding another penetration depth fuse. This is so meta. This is so fun. We can draw it up a bit until we reach 500. And here we can see we got the Netramiera damage going on there. What if we added more penetration depth fuses then? Would it deal even more damage? No, it will not. It will not. Okay. So now we know. The ultimate amount is 4 penetration depth fuses. Now, there are some other fuses and stuff here. I wonder if we could replace it. You can see the timed fuse and the inertial fuse, they don't have the speed modifier. So that's super sad. Yeah, look at that. Emergency ejection defuse. No, it just won't. Look at that. That's quite interesting. It's only the penetration depth fuse that has this speed boosting capability. Wow, okay. I conducted some additional tweaking and I could for the life of me not improve on Netramiera's design. The closest I got was to make this 18 module. Instead of 20 module, we have 18 modules and having 487 millimeters, and I really thought I got quite close here. I have 1 penetration depth fuse and I got it to 158,000, except if you add a sabot warhead, so it actually has the same armor piercing, I noted later, it does less damage than Netramiera's shell. And you can just add more solid word bodies and Netramiera's shell will do more damage. Now, I'm not 100% sure how it manages to do this, but obviously we have the speed boost of the penetration depth fuse while not having the maximum length, and while we have 4 penetration depth fuse and a base bleeder, we can basically make the shell exactly 7,999.9 millimeters, and this makes it better. I'm pretty sure this is the reason, because obviously having sabot warhead bodies or solid warhead bodies would be beneficial, but since we can't fit in more of them without not filling up the magazine completely, just it can be a fraction like 79.91 or something like that, like I had on the design I showed you. That makes it slightly worse. That's the reason why Netramiera's shell is better. So I couldn't improve on it. That's amazing. Netramiera's shell is truly awesome. So we're gonna test it. We are gonna test the max pen version, but a smaller version of it than we made for the diff gun. And damn, this is actually pretty close, the damage we could make with a diff gun, isn't it not? We could get it up to 65 thousand damage. And that's what the max we could do with a rail assist type of shell. So very cool. But later we're gonna test it against this, which I call my common sense shell, and I color coded them all. This is also 17 module shell, base bleeder, very similar to Netramiera's shell, but it doesn't use penetration depth fuses. But you can see it manages to not quite fill the magazine, which is a little bit annoying. Well, if we check here, we have the what is this? Sabot head and solids, and then we have heavy heads and solids. And this has a super high potential damage, but obviously its AP value is a bit lower. But I have color coded them for simple, simple testing. So we're gonna start. Oh, and last time we had some recoil problems. Recoil. So I added some more recoil absorbers. And then even some more. Actually a whole snake bunch structure of them in the back here. So yeah, hopefully the recoil won't be an issue this time. First out we have the pink with a heavy head and solid worded bodies. And the base bleeder, of course. It is clocking in at 493 millimeters. I did have to, you can see I can use the fractions here a little bit, so we can actually fill it up a tiny little bit more here, which is neat, so the potential damage should actually be a little bit higher than what we saw there. So yeah, let's start the tests. Here we fire it at, well, I basically made this Reddit type battleship armor. Then we have solid metal block, and then we have the like best armor against kinetics, stacked 4-meter slopes. Then we just have pure heavy armor, then we have just pure stone, and then we have the ducts. So we will be making sure it's set to not fire. Okay, good. Max like that, and go. Well, it goes straight through the Reddit type of battleship armor. By the way, I totally disagree with this armor design, but people on Reddit seem to like it, so... Solid metal. Oh yeah, I should also mark down it went completely through. As for stone, it probably needs to load some, right? No. There we go. 121,000 damage, and we could get it to go. Here is where it stopped. Set it like that. And we have the, well, anti-penetration. We'll need to wait for it to reload some. Oh, I accidentally limited the fire rate. That's why. Right. Bam. Against the penetrators, it only did 30,000 damage. It's very, very sad. It got stopped there. Yeah, this is a good anti-penetration armor, however, that should be said. Now, we did tweak the shells here against metal. Netramiera said we can add more sabot if we are meeting heavy armor, for example. But just for testing, we're gonna set it up like that because it does outperform anyway. I do suspect it will continue to outperform however we set this test up. Well, let's see here. Now we go for the pure heavy armor. 80,000 damage. Getting stopped here. Remember, this is heavy head with solids and a base bleeder. Alright, and pure stone. Bam, going straight through like that, no issues at all. Just marking it here as going straight through. And then we go to, is it, there we have it, the metal. Bam, we killed a lot of them. Getting stopped on the, I don't know how many that is. We can count when we have a winner. And then we have the heavy armor, making sure we're loaded. 96,000 damage. That's a lot, but well, it's not a record winner, that is for sure. Right, so now we're gonna go over to the yellow shell, which is the classic sabot head, solid worded bodies, and a base bleeder. The type of shell your most railgun penetrators are using. So isn't it smart that I color coded them like this? I think so. Anyways, assign to all intakes. And now we need to see what gauge these were set at. This is 193. This is the same, I think. I think that's the same gauge. Yeah. So if we just refill the APS shells, and we should be ready. And well, we'll need to start from first. Well, repairing all, and let us continue with the testing. You can see now the inaccuracy is crazy from recoil. See, the little shells are here. Oh no. Oh yeah, that's right. That's the Sabos. Good. So, Reddit armor going straight through here. I think all of them are probably gonna go straight through. And then we have solid metal. Not as far, 97,000 damage. This is not killed, that block, indeed not. So then we can go to the anti-penetration armor. We should do significantly better on this armor than the heavy head were able to do. Bam, definitely. Clocking in right about there. 3 layers of them cut through. And this is more armor than most front-siders have against something like this. So that is very nice. Right. Now we go to solid heavy armor. Bam. Did penetrate a little bit more than the heavy head, but not as much as I would expect. Now, the Sabot head's best thing is of course that it deals full damage to angles, or much more damage to angles. It doesn't get decreased angle like debuff like most things do. Solid stone. As expected, it will not go through. That's of course because our of course who has this much stone, like tell me that, but yeah, it melts through pretty well, I'd say, but yeah, it's fine. It's a fine shell. Then we have the metal. Yeah, we are having much more armor penetration capabilities, so the only thing where we expect it to actually perform better is this last thing against heavy armor ducts. And it actually doesn't perform better. That is interesting. So the only area where it actually were able to penetrate better, it is against the armor specifically designed for deep penetrating, well, anti-kinetics. And that's like a valid point. If you're meeting a front-sider, not getting through this is a deal breaker, and at that situation, the Sabot head is the better shell. Well, now we tested yellow, so we're gonna move over to my probably best contender here. It's not gonna be as good as Netramiera's. It's also 493 millimeters, using 17 modules. So let us then install the blue shell. And there we have it, blow into all intakes, and we can update these APS shells and repair. So, Reddit armor goes straight through. I feel I maybe I should have gotten it a bit like deeper. It's much less deep, but on the other hand, it just shows you that it will go through normal battleship armor. That's all it tells you. Against solid metal, we have definitely excelled the previous results. Deliver it to a good bit deeper than we could do with the heavy head and solids only. Now for the very interesting test. This is gonna be much interesting to see. Can we penetrate this? No, we cannot. We are at the same situation as that. That is quite sad. Well, not very surprising at all, actually. But there we go. Yeah, not very surprising, but I still had hoped for it to do even better penetration, so well, whatever. Next up, too far. Kinetics should melt right through, obviously it can. And for the metal like ducts, oh bam! We did go deeper than the previous two shells there. That is a record for the metal, and I guess it's adapted for it too a bit. Against heavy armor then. Same results, only killed 2 of them. And we can measure like exact values and stuff like that, but that doesn't matter too much. Either it kills a heavy armor or it doesn't. So people have at least 1 layer of heavy armor, probably 2. If you can't get through 2 of them with 1 shot, it's yeah, that's what I want to achieve basically, going through the armor in a better way. So that was my best shot. Now we're gonna do the old max penetrator shell. The green one. So we assign the middle there, assign to all intakes. Now, what caliber were this at? This is at 500, however. Yeah, this is gonna go up to 500. And this was just, of course. So now we can test the big gauges. And, whoops. There we go. So, repair and fire our Midori. Going straight through the Reddit battleship armor. Obviously. But for the sake of testing, against metal like this, we got almost as far as this what is it? The blue shell, the common sense one, I call that. Against the penetrator, this is pretty interesting. Ah, same results as before. Okay, yeah, that's an issue. That is an issue. There are situations we probably have to use a bowheads if we want it or not, but yeah, if we're gonna penetrate stuff like that, we have big issues if we can't get through. Oh well, let us check against solid heavy armor, and it did well. In the between performance, which is to be expected, less kinetic damage but higher AP. Right, so too far again against stone. It did get through barely, but getting through is getting through. And then we have the metal. I think it will kill this one. Bam! Better than the bowhead, but not as good as I would have hoped. No, not repair yet. Right, and then heavy armor. Bam! Basically same results going in there, so that is an issue. Green one didn't perform more in a better way. Well, then we come to the red shell, which is Netramiera's shell. Wow, this is gonna be the most interesting thing here. So we are certainly very interested to see what types of results we can get with this. We are going to shoot the first variant here, and then we can tweak it later against heavy armor to see if we can penetrate deeper with it. But for the testing purposes, going straight through the battleship armor, obviously it does, we don't need to mark that down. And for the solid metal, ooh, look at that. We have a record. We have a record. This has gone through the most of the armor here. And this, oh, here we had a little glitch too. That's a little weird glitch. We'll have to rerun that later, but for now we go down to the next one. This is probably because the game didn't have time to calculate everything. It's strange. So, testing this thing. Bam, it penetrates like the other ones. Not great. The sabot head is the only thing we can use there. And as for stone, we're going straight through the stone. May not be a surprise, but very nice. Okay. Then we have the metal. This should actually do the best performance against the metal ducts. And it does. We have a record against metal ducts, which is set up to. Now, without optimizing it, it's gonna be so interesting to see what type of damage are we dealing against the heavy armor ducts. Oh, it is more damage, but damn, it is not getting through that block. That is so sad. It is the maximum damage for sure, but let us try to tweak this thing a little bit, because the sabot head obviously had some advantages there. So, sabot warheads, we can add a couple of them more. I don't know if it's wise to fill it up with only sabots. Let's try that. Let's try to tweak it like that. It would theoretically do the best type of damage. And in case, reload, and bam. Oh yeah, it does slightly more damage, but it didn't get through here. Maybe we should add back 2 solid warhead bodies. And do like that, and bam. Basically same results, we only managed to kill 2 of them. This goes to show that if you have 2 heavy armor ducts stacked on top of each other, there is basically no APS shell that will be able to go through it if we're not looking into weird like diff guns like we did before. But we can see here that the shell built by Netramiera, it has a heavy head, right? So the AP value, even if we make all of them sabots, they will just not get too close there. So if we tune this again for metal, or just below metal, we can have 160 like this. Obviously, due to heavy armor having 16 armor piercing or armor class values, we're not gonna do the damage to kill more than 2 of the blocks. So I thought if we compare this, that it's slightly tuned to deal damage against metal. And the reason why we might want to undershoot this is if we have metal ducts, for example, also popular armor, they are armor class 40. The armor won't stack on them. As you can see, it's 40. Look at the stacked metal here, it's 48. But when we're talking this type of over penetration, it will shoot through. It will shoot through all of the like metal ducts. It will shoot through a lot of armor, but of course people don't have this much of it, right? Then naturally, if we have some internal components with big health, like for example, if we have these storage containers, they have a health of 15,000. So we want them to destroy all of the containers they might come across, as well as steam parts. The steam parts have pretty high health when we look at large steam. So a large piston is 90,000 health. We want it to kill like several pistons if it can too in one shot. That's amazing. Now, I wonder how expensive a large boiler is. 250 health of 5,000. Okay. Well, in any case, that's basically what we want. So we want it to not over penetrate, like having more armor piercing value than it needs. So it might be reasonable to undershoot it then. It usually is, in any case. Just slightly though. Well, This, in any case, would be a good setup for it, but naturally when we shoot at heavy armor we have some issues. So I was thinking like this: the solid rod of just solids and a sabot head obviously did some good armor piercing damage against some certain targets with our setup here. So I'm thinking we need to compare this shell against Netramiera's shell, which I modified. So I done it here. I switched it to a sabot head and have it only solids here. So then it have the same stats in terms of speed like the original, but it obviously deals a lot of armor piercing value. 86, it's overshooting it, but we can't lower it really, and a sabot head then. So then it would deal a lot of damage. So I'm thinking we should test that. Because if you see the stats here, 98,000 compared to this 97,000, so I'm thinking we need to compare this to this one we have already tried, but we're gonna do an extra run with the red one as I reformulated it to undershoot metal a little bit there. So we are going to switch the ammo we're using. We can do it first with the, let's see here, that is the original we have now tuned to be undershooting metal a little bit. So we can also rename this to sabot variant. And now this is like, so we're just gonna switch the shape to another shape for the other test here. So yeah, let's get on with this. Goes through, and if we wait for it to reload here, bam, goes to here. So now we can see we're not set up against stacked metal here, so obviously we don't get quite as far. And now is the real interesting thing: can we get deeper in this? We cannot, so we're still here. And with regular stacked heavy armor, we are... oh, we're not getting... weird. I wonder why I didn't place the red marker there. Well, whatever. We get 2 here. I think it went there before. Probably I just have some mess up with undo. It goes straight through there as well. And if we check the stacked metal here, yeah, we obviously do like really optimal damage against it, but it's the same as the previous one. It's really close, so in terms of stats, so it's obvious they have the same type of damage pattern. And if we deal this one, 106, destroyed 2 of them here as well. So that is very, well, not surprising at all. If we look at this thing, you can see the health is 16%, so that block is about to die. That's beautiful. Now, we're gonna compare that to, because we already have the values here for the yellow one, which is the sabot. So we're just gonna repair this, and we are going to switch the shell to the sabot Netramiera's variant here, which I put together there. So let us... I should have a picture of a lettuce. Anyways, we go through there like Martin does. It's funny. Or is it let's game it out, or is it both? It goes as far as the sabot one in any case, so that is the same type of deviation pattern too, is it not? Is it not? Interesting. Well, and this one, this is the really interesting one. Ah, it's basically the same. It is basically the same. Yeah, I think we'll need to run that test just to collect some more data. And we can see, as for this one, we got to here now. I'm using the same marker. That's kind of stupid. Let me let us place the marker when we redo the test actually. And against this we go, yeah, we'll go all the way there. So ducts, very similar stats to this one here actually. And mark it here. And lastly, here we have you. Killing 2 of them, so yeah. Dealing a little less damage though, but of course it's a bow, so it's much more less likely to deflect. And yeah, it has some really useful parts. If we have angled armor, for example, it won't like get so much reduced damage. Anyways, let's run this again. Bam, we got to this point. Now it actually got 1 point more, but we also have a straight penetration pattern. And that makes a lot of sense. I didn't think of that last time. Alright. Same type of penetration there. Going to the next one. And we're having it... Oh! That's the same, yeah, okay. That is the same. I just got confused, I suppose. And for pure stone, now this is more pure stone than people have, but it does penetrate slightly more. So it is an improvement. Whoops. What did I do there? Just misclick all over the place. Alright. Getting through there, killing it pretty decently. Last heavy armor one. Bam. Since it is a bow, it does deal more damage to angled armor. So that's something to really keep in mind. We can do a little test with that too, just so you know what I'm saying is even correct. So we're gonna take this little armor piece here. And we're gonna build up a little bit of an angle like this and put it like that. So then we can fire on this one, and this is with a sabot, right? And now we get to the green one here. We can have this one as a marker. And if we go and swap it back to the original Netramiera shell, which is the rosso, assign to all intakes. All right, and we fire here again. Oh no. All right, I accidentally moved it. Okay, now again. Well, shit. Yeah, it works better anyways, even though we have a 45-degree angle. Okay, let's try again. I'm not sure we actually shot the updated shell there. Okay, that makes more sense. We didn't have the updated shell. Well, makes a lot of sense. As you can see, bam. Oh yeah, when we have a heavy head, the sabot like function is like if you read it here, high velocity and even higher armor penetration. Yeah, lower kinetic damage. Presence of this, yeah, reduces effective impact angle to 75%. And if I recall correctly, there is a certain bit of randomness on if a shell will deflect or not. Now, they didn't deflect, but they can deflect. And I think Heavy Head can do some like varied amount of damage against angled targets like this. So if we just make sure our APS clips are refilled, just repair this, and if we shoot at this angle a certain number of times, you can see 63,000 damage, cool. 96,000 damage, cool. So there is like a certain bit, 81,000 damage. When we're shooting against angles like this, there is a certain amount of randomness too, which is something we'll have to keep in mind. When we're shooting at straight, like target flat surfaces like this, you can see we're shooting 98.4. Whoops, 100 and okay, let us 98.4. Repair again. 98.4. Okay, bam, 98.4. It's the same every time, and that is basically the difference there, where it's much more predictable. So if we shoot at an angled surface, we do generally need to do more tests to find out the results. And there is kind of the same thing for these. To find out like the best shells, I usually do more shots than once to find out how it goes. When we test them a little bit quickly like this, we do want to see the reliability too. So that's why the non-sabot heads, when we meet angled armor like this, may perform like better or worse dependent on the shot here. So it kind of depends, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes it's a bit unlucky, sometimes it's lucky. Good to know in any case. So this heavy head and this sabot setup does some really extreme deep penetration. It's very, very cool to see that we can get this far here. Especially, as you can see, when we tested this the first shot, it didn't get really far at all. So we kind of had a little bit of an unlucky shot, which is marked by this red one. And now you can see it almost got there. And now it got all the way there. So that's the interesting little part of information to keep here when we are talking about angles. But for reliability, having a sabot head instead can be a decent idea. And one thing I'm pretty interested in trying out with this system is delivering payloads with this. We could basically deliver an armor piercing shell inside whatever, and it is gonna get through. It's definitely gonna get through, and we already have the penetration depth fuse, so we don't need to worry about over penetration. We could basically just take a look at all of the Gimli ships in the folder, kind of measure the width of it, and take a little bit more than like half of the width of that, and use that to deliver some payloads. Yeah, which is pretty neat. Now we should actually try this a little bit here. As for the solid warhead bodies, we can, for example, switch a few to, yeah, let's do an armor piercing high explosive shell. We will lower the kinetic damage a good bit when we do this, but we're gonna try the sabot head, and we're gonna try the heavy head, and we're gonna compare the damage. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna put in 5 there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Something like that. So we still have a decent armor piercing value, so we are having a chance to get through. Well, let us reload the APS shells here and get going. Now I think we're gonna just shoot through here. Oh, now we also need to set up the pen depth fuses too. So we can set the penetration distance to like 30. We just drag all of them up to max. Alright, let's test this out. So 30 is the max, that's probably what we want to have too. Getting through there, we're dealing an explosion here. It's not a very scary explosion, but it's not like you would expect to get through the armor at this point. As for metal, probably better to have frag in this type of situation, to be honest. And this one, bam, that's a lucky shot. Got straight through there. And now we have our little angled armor here, but that will do. Doing some explosion there. And now our penetration is actually very good, of course, but the explosive damage is capped to like 25% what we put there. That's why it's kind of lackluster. And I'm hoping to see a really big difference when we're looking at the heavy head variant instead. Bam, going through there. So now we're gonna switch it to the... Oh, this was the heavy head one. It was. Well, then I feel like the explosive damage is gonna be so... Oh, right, yeah, so the... yeah, so the Sabot warhead bodies drag this down to... Yeah, so we only have a... Yeah, I forgot that. We have 3000 explosive potential. If we look at the Sabot one, we have also a 3... Oh, it's basically the same. So if we're gonna do a comparison, we're actually gonna switch the Sabot head here to a heavy head, because the rest of the parts are solid warhead bodies. So let's assign the no longer Sabot. Now this is super confusing. If you just jump around in the video, I believe it would be very confusing. Anyways, 16,000 damage in explosiveness. That's much better. Yeah, now we're talking. So yeah, if we're gonna carry payload with this type of system, I actually think it's better to have just solids. And having just solids like this is naturally a better idea anyways. Oh yeah, this is much more nasty. 31,000 explosive damage. That's like a proper penetration and explosive action. Metal one, bam, 16,000 explosive damage as well. And go with the heavy armor at a last, killing 2 of them like before. Right. So delivering payloads with a Sabot can be valid in some circumstances, but if we want to do serious damage internally, I think it's probably not the best way to set it up. The neat thing with Netramiera's shell, it has a heavy head, so it can easily be paired with a hollow point head. Now this does much less damage, of course. That's one of their issues, so to say. But they have the same speed. And due to that, they make a good mix, to be honest. So I just wanted to show you, because I'm thinking we're gonna take this shell and we're gonna develop something really scary with it. Look like this hollow point damage and really tear off exterior armor. And mixing this with a penetration makes it so we can easily clean up the exterior surface very, very, very efficiently. Yeah, so naturally against heavy armor it does much less damage, but the heavy armor is usually not what people have at their exterior. So the thing is, because we have a heavy head, the angles on the surface may be a problem. If we begin with a hollow point, we can clean up that surface layer and leave it open for the follow-up with the penetration shell, which will go much further if we are not having that armor. So at stone, of course, we can shoot again here. We can do some serious damage. Now, we tore up the metal ones a little bit there. Whoops. but that's the type of damage it does. 3 of them, not at all, but not super scary, but they are on the surface on, like, I don't know who uses those on the surface, just over engines, otherwise they are deep beneath. So we don't need to focus that. So first a hollow point shell, then we follow up with the super penetration shell. That's my plan for using these shells. So we rarely promote people outside our official challenges, but due to Netramiera submitting the upgraded version of the Arcobalista Invictus, the Arcobalista Domitus, and providing a shell that beat all the shells I put together, that's even better penetrating shell, and for Netramiera's fantastic ability to, a lot of the time, be the first person tuning in to our streams on Twitch or YouTube. So big congratulations to Netramiera, and thank you for those designs. That's fantastic. We shall promote you from Matros 3rd class to Matros 2nd class for your participation in the Empire of GMODISM, making this beautiful, very good shell I couldn't even make better myself, upgrading the turret and loyally tuning in to our live broadcasts. And the reason why I'm really slow with that promotion progression, that's only because I want a person that wants to participate in the challenges to be able to participate for a long time and still get promoted to a higher and higher number. And for the commissioned officers, if you're a commissioned officer, I have some Discord roles in form of medals, so to say, so you can still get something even though you remain at your commissioned officer level. But a commissioned officer can promote themselves, they can, and if they do that, they'll get the rewards of that level too. So if you want to game the system and gain as much as possible from the well, like Patreon rewards, you should join as a lieutenant, and when you got that reward, move over to commander, and when you got that, you know, you can do that. It's actually built so you can, so to say, game the system that way. If you think that's fun, it works. Well, in any case, I think we found out the best shell possible here, and that is definitely something I would not be able to put together myself. Heavy head, mostly sabots, a couple of solids, 4 penetration depth fuses, and a base bleeder. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to save this shell down, and it is going to be named after the Netramiera, of course. Of course. Now, my contending shells, like the max penetration shell, doesn't penetrate max, so we'll skip that. It also have a heavy head. It's not a valid type of design. And the other shells are also just, you know, less good. Even this common sense shell, it is not as good as Netramiera's shell. So we are going to make 3 variants of Netramiera's armor piercing shell. We're going to have a sabot variant. We are going to have a heavy head, like the max penetration variant, and we're going to have a hollow point variant to pair it with. But I don't think we need to save that down as a separate shell, because it... Oh yeah, we can actually. That simplifies things a little bit. Because when it comes to this, it's probably a good idea to have it only have solid warhead bodies and not a lot of sabots. If we have sabots, we can tear through more blocks and stuff if they're metal, but if they're not metal, you know, let's do a last little test with the hollow point and have a hollow point being solids only, and then we boost it with some sabots instead. Let's try that. We're gonna do several shots just to make sure. 80,000.5 damage, repair it. 80,000, 80.5, repair it, 80.5. Okay. Now we're gonna take this one and we're gonna add sabot warhead bodies here until we are over the stacked metal limit or close to it. 40 48. Okay, that's overshooting it a little bit. 47.8. That will be fantastic. So we're gonna do a refill and fire again. 81.8. All right. Whoops. No, I don't know what happened. Come on. 81.8. And 81.8. Yeah, we do more damage if we up it like that, but if we go over to something like the stone, for example, we would expect us to do more damage if we don't have the sabots like this. So if we try it again, 82.9 and 82.9, cool. And if we switch this back to solid warhead bodies, we can build ahead. We're gonna do like that. And 83. It's actually not that big of a difference. 83. It's actually pretty close, to be honest. You know what? I think the variant that is designed for the heavy head can just be swapped to a hollow point head. It doesn't need a different configuration, to be honest. So that is the shell we have there, and we're gonna have this one, of course. We're gonna save it down as a bow head instead, not an armor piercing head, like the worst of both worlds. Now I have one more shell that could be useful, and that is actually the pink one, which has a heavy head and solids, using a 493 millimeter gauge, and we have an armor class of just 31, but the expected kinetic damage is 183,000, which is a lot, of course. So if we would shoot at stone, for example, or actually like really a lot of alloy, that could be a useful shell to have as well. So I'm a little bit tempted to save this down as well, but yeah, I'm gonna save it down too, because I'm afraid that perhaps the penetration depth fuse hack will be patched sometime. So I'm gonna save this one down as well, since it was one of the better shells. So we can see with the stats here, it got pretty far inside of metal. It got all the way through stone. It did as much damage to the heavy armor ducts. It got through one of the best ones here at the metal. It did get pretty far into heavy armor as well, and it did not underperform using against this too, and that contains a bit of luck as well. So it's also a useful shell to have. There we basically have it. Big thanks, of course, to Netramiera for submitting this too, and this has been a session. I'll go and edit for a couple of hours now. You don't want to know how much space these recordings take on my hard drive. Big thanks for watching, and big thanks to Netramiera, and of course big thanks to all in the army of GMODISM, especially the commissioned officers who are supporting the channel, and the Ecclesiarchy of GMODISM, and of course if anyone joined the government of GMODISM, that too. You all help me very much, of course, doing this thing. So thanks a lot for watching, if I didn't say that already, and yeah, this is your host Eric, and I'm signing out. Bye.